So funding to make those things happen is very important. And people fall at the hurdle. They say, well, all right, I can go out and I can get funds, but it's very difficult if I do it myself. Well, maybe I should go out and I should get a professional fundraiser. And then you go, can I afford a professional fundraiser? And it's chicken and egg. Can you afford him or her? Can you not afford him or her? Do you do it yourself? And the answer we're probably going to find out this morning is it's a bit of both, because you know, when you employ a tradesman who comes into your house, you still have to tell them what to do. They don't just do it automatically. And that's, you know, it's a truism. And Susie's going to fill us in a little bit on that, because she's got a lot of experience in the Leeds community of actually making projects happen by ensuring that they get the funding in. And she's going to tell us how they do that, how they go about it. So this isn't a how to do it. This is you're not going to come away from this morning after, you know, 50 odd minutes and know how to fundraise. That is not the point of this. But this is to give you a taster of what we've got on there. There's information which you can look at and you can go over and over and over again. And that will give you some assistance if you know some stuff already, or whether you don't know and it's really a beginning. You're starting from scratch. So getting funds for your project is one way to make it happen and perhaps have sustainable things going forward. So let me just share the screen. And oh, is that the right one? Yes. So that's just going back to our page here. Now, if I just go back to the home page, and I know one or two of you have looked at this before because you've commented on it. Let's just get rid of that thing there. Is our Transform Toolkit. And I have to say that Johnny Weinberg was central in providing some of the materials for this, which we have redesigned and reworded to suit small communities better. Not all of it, like I say, it's a work in progress. But it's a practical aid, and at the moment the most practical part of it is the fundraising section. And so we have a number of resources on here. We have a 10-minute guide on how to go about fundraising, and we also have a number of resources. And if we just look at the resources, it's not a huge number on here, but it's a bit overwhelming to look at first. So, but you can filter them. Excuse me a second. So if we just click on the funding tab, you can see that they rearrange, and some of these are organizations who will give you money. Some of these are organizations who will help you get money. And some of the obvious ones on here are Lottery Heritage Fund, Lottery Community Fund, and they split up into different ways. There's another one which is Near Neighbours, which is again focused on particular areas. So lottery is split into a number of different areas. We have Awards for All, which is grants up to 10,000. And then we have Reaching Communities, which is over 10,000. And I can't remember exactly now, is it up to 100,000 or up to 200,000 pounds? And then we have Tesco's, who can help in local ways. They usually work with the local communities, their local Tesco's. We have YesOdd, who will help fund any professionals that you've got in your community working with the community. And JSCN has a close relationship with YesOdd. And if you remember a few months ago, we had YesOdd who came in as a guest and told us about what their work. And there are some smaller resources like the Chief Rabbi's Fund, Empowering Excellence, And then we have organizations who can help you do these things. So the Charity Excellence Framework will help you look for funders. Charity Digital will give you workshops to actually understand how to go about different processes. And then we have what are essentially some software platforms. Golden Giving will help you take donations digitally. Donify is a customer relations management system for donations and for managing your contacts. And so is KindLink, which has a number of things. And if you read this, it says, well, they can even do gift aid reporting. Both these, KindLink and Donify, have free options and will not cost you anything. You have to invest a little bit of time and effort into understanding the systems, but that's like a new system, you have to understand it. Both of them will help you process gift aid because they can process your donations through them. We're not going to look at taking donations today because that is a huge topic on how you set that up. But JSCN, I've got a lot of experience in the different ones that you can use and the downfalls, why you shouldn't use some because they're really expensive, and why you shouldn't use others because they're way too complicated, and which are the good, easy ones that you can incorporate and actually use for all your donations, whether they're cash or whether they're digital online payments, is quite interesting. So that's funding. Then organizations who can support you. NCVO provide a lot of training courses. Crowdfunding is a crowdfunding platform. You see Charity Digital is up here again because Charity Digital also are a gateway to getting low cost or free software. So I don't know if you know, but you can get Microsoft 365 absolutely free. In fact, you don't go through Charity Digital, you go to Microsoft Direct. And we do have a link on there. So where it says, where actually, if you go under the software link, you say Microsoft 365, and within JSCN, we have completely free for up to 10 users. That's a lot of people. You don't have to pay for Microsoft at all, and that gives you the full suite of Microsoft applications. That's the software element of Charity Digital, where you get a software. So if you want things like Adobe Photoshop and all those applications, you can get those at a much reduced price. Still costs you quite a bit of money, but it's way cheaper than if you pay full retail. But you have to go through them. You have to pay them £4 administration charge, and then you get access to it. And there's lots of other things. And then there's training. Like I say, YesOD, and NCVO, and Charity Digital keep popping up. So Charity Digital is a charity in itself and provides lots of help. So that's really the first port of call on the Transform toolkit that we've got, is to look at what resources are there. And it might not make sense what you need at first, but go and look at them and understand that they're there available for you. So if I go back to the beginning, you can see that there's a number of things that we're going to build in. We actually have a section on anti-Semitism, but that's not really our focus for today. The next thing is excuse me, how-to guide for fundraising. And let me switch over to another screen. Whilst I do that, has anybody got any questions about that so far? Nope. Okay. Oh, I see Johnny's joined us. Johnny, I'm sure will be chipping in during the course of the morning. But if I just go to, oh, wrong button. There we go. So funding, how do you do that? And a lot of people, like I say, give up at the first hurdle and go, you know what, we've got enough funds within the community. We don't need to go through all that hassle of administration and paperwork and figuring out how we do this. Let's just do it within our community. We'll just go out and ask some of our local benefactors to put into the community, and I'm sure they will. And that is the answer which people give so many times. And that is great. But it's finite. There's only a certain number of times you can do that in a year. And there's only a limit on how far you go with it. And also, in doing that, it doesn't say, have I checked that what I want to do is actually going to work? So going through a process actually makes you look very hard at what you're doing, why you're doing it. We kind of looked at what a little bit where you can get funds. So we talked about raising donations. You can raise donations. You should be raising donations all the time because it keeps people involved. And most communities do, but you probably do it through a coffee morning, or you do it through the Colnidre appeal, or you do it through a once a year big thing where you go, the shul needs this, we're really appealing to you. But you can attract small donations all the time, £5 a month, £10 a month, £50 a month. And people quite like doing that. They certainly like doing that with JSCN. It doesn't hurt. But you need to create a platform for that. And we'll do another session on how you actually make that easy for people. You know, you don't have to fill out a lot of paperwork. It's like 2 clicks. The other way of getting funds, we already covered, is to go out to your benefactors. But that, you know, that comes with, like I say, with a finite resource. But where else can you go? How do you find those sources? Well, one of the most obvious sources to go to is the National Lottery. I don't know if any of you have considered that. I know that some of you in the room today have done it. They've gone through that process. Awards for All is probably the most straightforward. I'm not going to say it's easy because nothing's easy, but it is the most straightforward fund to apply for. You don't have to be a registered charity. Most of you will be, some of you aren't. It doesn't matter if you're a registered charity, but you have to be a community and be a non-profit. And you can apply for up to £10,000, and it can be for whatever period you want. So if it's for 6 months, if it's for 3 months, it can be up to, I think 12 months is, I think there is a maximum. And they ask you one question: why do you want the money? What are you going to do with it? There are other people who you can go to. You can go to other charitable trusts, and you'll probably know that there are a number of Jewish charitable trusts out there, but there's also a lot of non-Jewish charitable trusts who will look at you. And if I stop sharing for a moment, has anybody actually gone to either the lottery or to a charitable trust for money? Just hands up if anybody has. I know Johnny has. So Debbie, Michelle, Ruth. And what was your experience? If you want to unmute yourself. Was it easy? Was it, were you put off? Did you go somewhere else? Ruth, yeah.
Some are easier than others. The Chief Rabbi's one is easy.
Yeah.
And the heritage lottery funds and things like that are much more demanding to fill in. But
yeah, well, heritage lottery isn't a trust. That's the National Lottery, so it sort of stands up by itself a little bit.
I mean, the National Lottery ones are harder. The ones that require more information are more daunting.
But what most, there are a number of there's Rothschilds, there are some private family trusts, and one of the ways that you can go about finding them is to simply go to the Charity Commission website, and you can do a quick search. There is a more comprehensive way of searching, which you need to subscribe to through various databases. And if you go to somebody like Johnny, who is a professional fundraiser, he subscribes and will be able to do a search for you. You know, but those things are kind of a service which you buy into. But you can do some more low-level searches yourself. They're not comprehensive. They're not going to find everything. But you can do it. So, for instance, in Manchester, there's a family trust called the Steenberg Trust, and they cover a certain area. So you go onto the Charity Commission website, and I'm not going to do this now because it's drilling into more detail than we're actually talking about today. But you can go to the Charity Commission website, put in the Steenberg Trust, and that will bring up that charity's details. They'll bring up their annual report, and in that annual report, it will characterize who they actually give money to and to what sort of causes and what sort of projects. So if they're not giving to your sort of project, then you don't apply to them, because they're just going to say, no, that's not what we do. One of the things that we look at in our how-to video, which is on the website, is actually how to go about that. So let me go back to the website for a second. Sorry, I didn't do that properly. Let me just do that again. So at the bottom of this page, we've got this. It's on our YouTube channel. And I'll just kick it off.
There are a number of things that you should have in place before you actually go about your fundraising. The first thing would be charitable status. A lot of funders out there want to know that you're a registered charity. It tells them that you're okay, that you actually know how to be responsible as a charity. You need a clear management structure, again to tell them that you know how to manage things and that you're organised.
I'm just going to click through this because you can watch this in your own time.
Often some literature, maybe a simple... Where's the proof of the need? How do you know that what you're looking to do is really needed by your community? Who's going to benefit from it? How they're going to benefit? And why are you the right people to do this? Aren't there other agencies around? You've got to prove that you're the right people. Be very clear about when the project will start and end. Funders will want to know that. They'll want to know that you've actually thought through how long this project is for. And how are you actually going to go about implementing the project, putting it into practice and making it work?
Right. I'm going to stop that there. So as you can see, you know, there is quite detailed information about the different steps that you need to go through. And whether you are doing that with a charitable trust, whether you're doing it with the National Lottery, or whether you are making a case to a private benefactor who is in your community or somebody who you know, who you can approach, all those questions are really important to answer in order to be get a successful yes as a result of asking for funds. I do recommend that you actually go through that whole 10-minute video and then go back and watch it again, and then go back and watch it again, and then go back and watch it again, because I have to say, Johnny put that together. I ran through it a number of times. I then put it into a video format, and then I watched it about 10 times and let it sink in. So that's a good way of doing it. But let me go back to to the slide. And I don't want to take too much time. So we saw that the video was asking a number of questions there. How do I find sources? And we've just talked about that. What do I need to know about them? And I just talked about that a little bit as well. Yeah, there we go. And what are the obvious choices? Well, the obvious choice to start with is the National Lottery, because it's one question. So what is your project? You really have to ask yourself what it is that you want to do, why you want to do it, and what's going to happen out of it. So these questions will help you address that. What is the need that it addresses? And how did you go about identifying that need? How is your community get involved in it? Because most of the people are going to be asking, you know, is your community invested in this project, or is it just sort of, you know, a bit of a dream on the part of whoever's come up with a project? And ultimately, what benefit is your community going to get? You're probably going to have to say how you're going to assess that project, how it's going to be measured. You know, has it been successful? What was successful? What needed to be changed in future? And most people will want to know how that program is going to carry on after the money runs out. So you need a plan. So those are some of the resources on there, which you can work through, and which, whether you are going to do the funding bid yourself, or whether you're going to get some professional help, you still need to know the answers to all those questions. And I think at that point, I'd like to bring Susie Gordon in from Leeds to talk about the process that the Leeds community has gone through in successfully raising money for different stages of their projects. And sometimes you need to raise money for the research before you even do the project. Susie, would you like to sort of pick up from there?
Yeah. Are you happy for me to share the presentation? I don't know if I can. Do I have access to
let me
that?
just, I can do that. Yeah, you should be able to do that now.
Okay. So, there we go. Now, this has been really interesting, and I wish I'd known all of this before we started this process myself. I'm not a funding expert. I don't even pretend to be one. I have worked for the Leeds Jewish community for about 10 years. So my job has been very operational, getting projects off the ground and kind of bringing the community together. But this was just, it happened. It kind of just happened in the process. So I didn't do any research or that, not that much actually. I did speak to Johnny, I think a year before this all took place. But yeah, so I'll explain the kind of the story and how this came about, because I think actually some of my learning might help with you as well. So we did have just to start this off, a successful funding application, which is why I think obviously I've been asked to help with this we did it under the Leeds Jewish Representative Council. So in 2016, Leeds was included within the JDC's Community Resilience Pilot Programme. JDC, if you don't know, it's a massive global organisation. They tend to deal with more humanitarian issues, politics and social deprivation. But this was one area that they thought was really important. They don't tend to work with the UK because they see the UK as very successful and wealthy, which is unfortunate. But from a previous project that my role came from with them, and I think it was about 10 years before, we called them back. And so it was just good timing that they chose us as the right size community to work with. The fact that I was in post for the whole community, and I could see the overview. So they had this framework of these key areas that they think if you are strong in those areas, you will have a very strong community. And as you can see, when they did our profile, we have a lot of amber and red. So there were kind of big problems and really big alarms to start with of where we were not so strong, and a lot of perception over reality. And this was based on about 25 different interviews with different leaders of the community and different people in the community. So it's not based on the massive amount of research, but it was enough to kind of get an overview and a picture. And also with this pilot came a little bit of seed money as well to help us. So they had a bit of a process, and it meant we could map out a kind of a plan of where we wanted to go for improvement. But we need to engage more people in that process. We needed more people to be part of it, that conversation. Like with everything to do with change and progress, just doing it in silo by yourself is never going to kind of create a community response, a positive one. So we had to bring more people into this conversation. But obviously that also costs money. So when we were doing data collection and evidence, but you're also engaging. So when you're asking people anything, so as you do this kind of process of evidence finding, once you ask somebody a question, they're really then part of the process that you're going through, and they feel part of that. So it's just kind of keeping those relationships going. So we created this project called Community Voices, and it was a series of focus groups as well as an online survey, really finding out what was it that people wanted, what was it about the community that they were that they want to be part of, what are the needs. And the JDC supported us to recruit a grant funding specialist. I wasn't one. I'm not particularly good at writing. I'm very good at articulating it, and I can bring you all the energy and enthusiasm that you like. But when it actually comes down to what is it on a piece of paper, what does it look like, that's not my skill set. And we appointed someone to help us. And really, basically, as Ed was saying before about pulling the intelligence out, they can't, like a builder can't just come in and do something, they have to pull it out. So we're pulling my knowledge out of me and writing it in a way that a funder would want to hear it. So we just applied for Awards for All, which, as was said before, a very easy to fill in grant. It really was a really simple process. And we won £8,550 from the Awards for All scheme. And that meant that we could run some professionalized focus groups, and also a survey as well. So I trained in what's called Art of Hosting. How do you run these workshops where you get lots of collaboration and lots of input from other people? A researcher who really understood like the questions that we need to be asking. And then the person who was our bidding expert was also very good at online survey. So he helped to kind of put together the online survey. And that money basically paid for the cost of being able to deliver all of this. So we could pull out all the evidence really that we needed to really look at what was the need in the community. What was it that we were trying to achieve as a community? What does it want to do? And those conversations haven't stopped. They're still going now. So even once that happened, the project didn't stop. So we found out there were lots of good things. There were lots of great outcomes, but we really, but we were a really strong community, that we're a thriving community. People want to be part of the community. Like there were loads of kind of really lovely parts, like that kind of made us reassure ourselves, actually, we're not going completely in the wrong direction. But there were lots of other gaps as well and errors. A massive one was how we service our minority groups, how we being a welcoming and caring community, that we are we have an over provision of synagogues, that we don't have brilliant event coordination for activity. We don't target very well. There's not a vast array of different kind of activities for people. There was a need for more Jewish education outside our primary and high school for adults and children, and more emphasis on community planning. So these were like the key areas that were coming out that we could then continue to use as part of our plan for the future. But one major thing that did come out was about volunteering. And I think it kind of, once we did it all, it was pretty obvious that this was going to come out, but I hadn't really thought about it. All of our organisations rely heavily on volunteers. All our, to run the organisation, to be part of the organisation, you all need volunteers. People wanted to volunteer, or if they were already volunteering, they wanted to volunteer more. So there was like a big calling to be able to volunteer, but there was no coordination. There was a coordination within one of our organisations, really good coordination within our welfare board, but only for them, their own service provision. There was nothing else. If anybody else wanted to volunteer in the community, it was really hard to know where to go to. And this kind of formed the basis of our project of, we need to look at capacity building, not just for now, but for the future, and how we're going to put that into place. So we re-recruited the grant funding specialist to help us put a proposal together. We built a project and we went back to the lottery and we basically said, look, you gave us the money for the awards for all. We did all this research. We know what the community wants. Here is the outcome and here is the project that's come from this. And you could kind of see the path. There was a really good train there of the journey that we went through, and it was very genuine. I wasn't trying to force a project from something. I didn't guess a project. It came very naturally. So we applied for, it was very specific. It was a very specific number. I say 195. The way that we did it was to make it show that we had done our calculations very well of how much this was going to cost us. We did a whole budget breakdown. So we didn't apply for just 190,000 or 195. It was kind of point whatever, because it made them realize that we'd really thought hard about how much we were asking for. And it was up to 200,000 that we were allowed to apply for. And so Tom is the guy next to me on the right hand side. He is my guru of funding. And we worked very well together. He was able to really pick my brain and pull out articulately what it was we were going to be doing. So the pair of us worked together, and it was very hard. I'm not saying that this process was easy. We had to do applications and basically essay writing, interviews. I built a relationship up. We were given someone from the lottery to work with, a caseworker. So I built my relationship up with her. We kept in touch through email and phone calls. They were happy. Once you kind of got through the first initial stage, that's how they decide whether you're good or not. That you don't have to do much for the first initial stage. They can decide pretty much, do you have a project or don't you? Does it fit within our regime or does it not? So they won't waste your time going through all this process if they don't think you're going to have a positive outcome. So even during that process, we were pretty sure we were going to do well. And Tom's time obviously was needed much more for this than the awards for all. So this was costing us money, and that was a huge risk. And there was absolutely still no guarantee we were going to win. But thankfully we did. Right then in December, so this is quite recent. This is all quite recent. So December, we were given the money, and by January it actually came into our account, and we thought, brilliant, we're going to recruit a volunteer coordinator. We're gonna have this whole portal and loads of volunteers. And then the whole world went into shutdown, and every priority, everything we wanted to do kind of came to a standstill. And I guess this is when the being able to take a bit of a step back and re-evaluate what we're doing. And I just paused it. I just said, let's not recruit. Let's just give it some time. Let's see how things settle. And actually, what is it we really need to do right now? What is it that we need to really consider? What's our most important aspect of this position? And actually, that's turned into an even bigger project, I suppose. Rather than recruiting one person, all the outcomes, even though it seems really heavy and negative from COVID, I'm kind of going off track a bit, but there was so much talent and so much collaboration that came out of COVID that I have never seen. I've been dragging people to come and help and volunteer and do things. Suddenly there was just a vast array amount of love and care and support. I was like, actually, here is an opportunity. We've got funding to really harness that now. And the talent, the creativity that people came out with, things that we could do whilst we were in this horrendous situation. And let's invest in those people rather than recruit someone new. Let's really harness what they have to offer. So we've been working with the lottery to kind of re-look at the original proposal of recruiting one person and actually splitting it into 4 roles. So we're doing the welfare board, who already have a volunteering coordinator and hub, of expanding that provision to the whole community, so that we will provide an online provision. Anyone who wants to volunteer can, anyone who's got voluntary opportunities can put it on the portal. And this is when it came from the talent of outreach, relational outreach. It's all based on relationships. Our community cannot survive without relationships. It doesn't happen. So having somebody really looking at those people who want to get involved and want to do things, of taking that time to really build those relationships with them and getting them to do more and knowing what's going on in the community to be able to match. Then the kind of internal relationships. So looking within our own organisations, who's on our membership, what organisations know other hundreds and hundreds of people, the schools. So it's kind of what can they do within their own membership, and how do we link this all together? And then also part of engagement is all this online activity, because at the moment our community is completely online. It's skeleton services, it's schools, so it's kind of, we need to find other ways of being together on a computer. So we have somebody now looking at that too. And also, as soon as we started this project, other things started to come out, because you're starting conversations, people are starting to talk to each other. Suddenly this idea of shawl amalgamation conversation, with the timing, it was just before COVID, but with the timing of kind of how we actually servicing our community as a whole, rather than working in individual silos. And that's kind of, these conversations were occurring. Educating for Impact, which is a European initiative. Our school was then, through our contacts with the JDC, they were now part of this program, a massive program. They received loads of funding and support, and we're looking now with that of how that expands into a strategic plan for the community. The Rep Council, Leadership Representative Council, hasn't had a significant role in our community pre 3 or 4 years ago, and it's now becoming much more of the real umbrella, a genuine umbrella to bring everything together. Recently there was a Shabbat project for students, because they were completely in isolation, and how are they going to survive? And we have this group now, we have this support network, and loads of volunteers kind of help, so we're able just within 48 hours support our students. And also just to say that JDC now uses Leeds as their example community through this process, which is incredible, because Leeds has been so insignificant in the UK, really, because it's not Manchester and it's not London. In Europe, we've never even had any contacts in Europe. It's not even been on our radar. So to be part of the map, to be part of the process, has been incredible. So this journey has been such a journey. And then from this, we're now looking at rebuilding our website to become really warm and friendly, a real community feel. How we put on like really good events together. So we're now looking at Hanukkah, and actually if we are all in lockdown and all online, it's like, what else can we be doing? What can we be doing to bring Hanukkah to people's homes, to really give them the feel that we still care about them, and with you, we still want them to be part of the community. And then obviously this is when I'm trying to now work on really strengthening the role in the Rep Council of how can we resource it better to be able to play this stronger part in what's going on. So all these things have kind of just fed through. I don't know how to how do you unhide my stop sharing? There we go. So yeah, it's just been a real incredible journey, exhausting journey. This has not been an easy process at all by any means. Getting people on board, getting people to understand what we're trying to do hasn't been an easy process, but the reflection of what's happened, all by chance, really. I couldn't have predicted anything. It's been very heartwarming and an extremely humbling experience.
Thanks, Susie. So, you know, I've been going through a steep learning curve. Susie's gone through a learning curve, and the whole Leeds community has gone through a learning curve. And it's very interesting to see that you can ask for money to help you do the research so that you can apply for more money. So you can apply for the big project. And I think people don't realize that. They think you've got to do the research in the big project. Well, no, you can split it out. And that's another discussion, really. But I can see Ruth has got a hand up. Ruth. Oh, you just muted yourself. That's
Hi,
it.
Susie. I'm sure everybody here would feel quite overwhelmed by what you've presented. I think Birmingham is probably the next biggest community represented here to Leeds. And I need to ask you a few questions. One of them is, I'm not sure whether you said it, but I'm just going to ask for clarity. Are you in a paid position now?
Yeah, I've always been in a paid position.
Right. Okay, so I mean, I think it sounds fantastic. I wish I could encourage you to come to Birmingham. One of the things that my son David Jacobs has told me about living in Leeds is that he's amazed at how much cross-community, particularly cross-shul events happen, because in Birmingham it certainly doesn't. The shuls are so territorial that, God forbid, they should hold an event together without looking as though we might want to join with each other, which they don't want to. But I think that what you've outlined sounds amazing, but I don't know whether it's just, whether I'm quite a lot further on than you, also not employed by anyone to do it, so it's all honorary. I just feel a bit overwhelmed by it all, and I think that maybe quite a few people on this Zoom call would feel the same, because the problem is that it sounds wonderful about engaging loads of volunteers, and but here the volunteers are all the same, and the same people responding to every need, a little bit of variation. Also, we're a much older, we have less young people than you do in Leeds, which is a lesser audience to tackle and engage with. And I think, and although we have a lot of students, the students are very much a community on their own, and they get a little bit involved, but not very much, because they've got their own things to deal with. I think that I do feel very, very inspired by what you've had to say, and it's crossed through my mind of various organisations that it would be great if you would be willing to give this talk again to perhaps a Zoom call to various community people in Birmingham, let's say at a rep council meeting, or including Birmingham Jewish Community Care and things like that. Would you be interested to do that?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. I really didn't mean to overwhelm you at all by this.
It's not anything that you meant. It's
okay.
Where, I don't know about the other people, but it's where I'm sitting after being involved in the community for more than 40 years and feeling, I suppose when I hear what you've got to say, I feel a bit jaded. And I would love to find people like you, and I'd love to find a grant to pay for people like you, which I'll be looking at. But if you'd be willing to talk to us as a council, I think that would be a great step forward.
Ruth, we're going to have this particular session, which is going to go on our YouTube and our Facebook, so you can replay it to other people, just to give them a bit of a flavour. And I understand the idea about it of being overwhelming, because it's 1 hour to cover a big territory. And it's really just an introduction. And I'm hoping it's going to be a bit of a warm up for a series of workshops, which I'm trying to get funding for in the new year, where we can break this down into bite-sized chunks so it's not overwhelming. But I'm going to go to Johnny, because he's got his hand up, had that for a little while, and then Susie and Joe as well.
I don't want to take Susie's thunder away, so just Susie, want to go first?
Well, just to respond to Ruth, that's all.
Go on, Susie, then. Yeah.
Just to say that when I started this, I had a very similar response in our community as well, that people weren't talking to each other. there weren't enough volunteers, there's not enough young adults, everyone's moving to Manchester and London. So I would never have predicted what happened 5 years ago. Go on, Johnny.
Thanks, Susie. Johnny.
And that's really important, because what Susie gave you was the whole picture. What any small community needs to look at is the start. And the start is bringing the community together, really good community consultation, and then those smaller grants. So I've put on the chat the community foundations list. They're great for small grants. And obviously the lottery. Now, at the moment, Awards for All isn't there because obviously with COVID, but you can all at the moment go for COVID grant. We are a particularly affected community, and you can do something that lasts for, you know, a few months, and part of that can be about bringing the community together, reassurance, and just looking at effectiveness and support for each other, and as simple as just befriending each other. So that's the sort of first step, and that, even though it's COVID funding, would then be able to lead on to those other opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, JSCN has just got COVID emergency funding, and we're putting all these things on the website to bring people together so that they can do things. Joe, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I found what Susie said very interesting and enjoyable to hear. And also going on from what Ruth said, I mean, if we take this forum, we're the Jewish Small Community Network, Susie, what I'd like to know is how big is the Leeds community? Before you answer that, I am presuming, so tell me if I'm wrong, that Jason Kleiman, who I know is a rabbi in Leeds, might be on your committee. He's a good friend of mine and started his rabbinical career with us in Catford. But then going on to what Ruth said, the problem is in London, and in case you don't know, we're south of the river, is that we tend to be ignored by the communities in the north of the river. And the small Jewish communities that are in the south are widespread and don't have very large communities. So although I've got a very good group of volunteers, and particularly since COVID-19, we've been going out getting food for people, driving to North London to buy kosher food because the kosher shops that used to deliver to south of the river stopped. It's been very difficult. So there's about a dozen of us, no more, who try and help the local community, many of them who are quite elderly. So I found what you said very interesting, and I know that you know, Jason is a very enthusiastic young gentleman, not so young now, and we used to compared to me. And yeah, I thought what you've done is really good. But the point is, Leeds must have quite a large community with all the schools, etc., which obviously does make some sort of difference. But all power to your elbow that you've got them to, you know, join in with each other. Where I can understand from Ruth that you know, it doesn't happen everywhere for some unknown reason. I don't know if it's a Jewish thing, but they like to keep in their own little ghetto and don't like to amalgamate with others. It certainly happens in the between the North London Jury and the South London Jury. Just one other thing, Ed, if I could mention it as a tangent. You haven't mentioned about gift aid. We get funding from a couple of charitable sources, particularly Children's Aid. Children's Aid literally pay for all our teachers for the Cheder, which is one of our successes. Our Cheder, bearing in mind we've only got 230 families, we've got over 30 children in our Cheder and 5 teachers, and that's all paid for by the Jewish Children's Aid Society, which is very helpful. Very helpful.
That's great.
And yes, gift aid. You know, I don't know if everybody knows that membership, the people who pay the membership now, you can claim gift aid on it, and that does help us as well.
Yeah, well, yes, I mean, I think that's a prerequisite. I know my synagogue, you know, 25% of the funds come through gift aid. But there's a number of people with hands up. I'm going to go quickly.
Can I just respond? Can I just respond?
Sorry, Susie, go on.
That's okay. So there, from the census, there's roughly 6,000 to 8,000 Jewish people who live in Leeds, but that doesn't mean that there's 6,000 to 8,000 engaged members in the community. Had you asked me 5 years ago how many people were engaged, I'd say about 200 to 400. So the level of people, there's a difference between a number and sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go on.
There's a difference between a number and engagement is far more important than the number. So if you've got however many people are fully engaged in what you're doing, you have a community. If you just have Jewish people who live in the city, you don't have a community. It's just a number of people. So it's all about relationships, and the whole of the last 3 years has been about building relationships and putting people in. Sometimes it's not a comfortable position, and when it's somebody you don't know. And so people stick with people that they do know, and that's why your circle stays so small. You recruit people you know, you get volunteers that you know. It's an easy, safe space. So going out there to people that have never been part of a community before, they're nervous, you're nervous because it might be a slightly shy element to a character. So it's just kind of balancing that. And if you could just get another 5, and if they can bring another 5, and those people bring another 5, slowly, before you know it, you have more people. And now we have a Facebook group with over, I think it's nearly 3,000 people on it, and it started with about 10 people. So it's just the perception of it and reality are not always the same thing. And this, if you ask anyone in Leeds about, do you think it's a big community or a small community, I think majority will say they live in a small community.
Thanks, Susie. Okay, so quite a few people want to contribute now. So first of all, I'm going to go to Johnny, then I'm going to go to Fiona, who I know has another one. No, okay. So I'll go straight to Fiona, and then Sarah, and I think Debbie, did you have your hand up ages ago? Did you? Yeah. So that's where I'm going to go, and then to Michelle. So Fiona, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so just because you were doing this session about fundraising, I just wanted to come and talk about some partnership bid writing that I've just been involved with through Skojek. So hello, Alan and Hilary and Debbie. Hi. So I've been bid writing for years, and sometimes you have to have partners, and sometimes at the last minute I've rung a couple of people and said, can we just add you to this bid, which is rubbish, and it's sometimes worked. But this time we did an absolutely amazing experience that I just wanted to tell some people about, which is there was an opportunity to bid for some money through the Rothschild Fund for post-COVID blended events, and I didn't really know what to do. So we put out a call to all the Scottish or Jewish communal organisations to see if any of them wanted. I was working for Skojek, Scottish Council of Jewish Communities, of which Alan is the chair, of which I've just retired from, or half retired from anyway. And so we got a group of, we put out a call to all the communal organisations in Scotland. All the different denominations actually do speak to each other, which is quite novel and exciting. And so we had some different shuls and different youth groups and different guide group and different organisations met. And we started off by talking about what we might want post-COVID. And then when we decided what it was, which was to have a filmmaker come and help us to make face-to-face events streamed really well for online audiences, and also for that filmmaker to be able to teach the people in the communal organisations how it works, and to have some student volunteers. And anyway, we built up an idea of a project. And then I did something that I'd never done before, which is we had 6 weekly meetings leading up to the deadline, and that the project partners met in on Zoom, and we took bits of the bid, and people just went off into breakout rooms and wrote draft responses to those answers, to those bits. Ed was part of it as well, and it was an amazing model. And I felt I've never done anything as good as a partnership project. Hilary was part of it, and I just wanted to share it a little bit because I feel that I need to write about it. It'll be even better if we get the money, but I just thought it was a really good model of partnership work.
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, but I was involved as JSCN, and we've got a bid in for the same thing. I have to say we were all invited to bid for this. So that's hopefully that's a bonus, and we'll keep keep everything crossed for the new year. Let me go to Sarah.
Thank you. A really interesting topic today. Bid writing. I've worked for Merseyside Jewish Community Care, who obviously put in a lot of bids, and I know that there's certain wording that bid people like, so it's a question of wording. But just coming back to what Ruth and Joe were saying about community workers, I do agree there is a difference between a paid community worker and a volunteer. I've been a community worker for the best part of 10 years now, and have thoroughly enjoyed myself, and really I hope Michelle will back me up here, but I came into my forte. But I think regarding events for your community, and I'm sure Susie, this is something that you touched on as well, give your community the events that they want and they will come to them. It's also about networking. You've got to work out what works for your community and what doesn't. Get to know your community. I'm sure you all know your communities. You know, if they don't want a speaker event, but they want a speaker event on Israel, bring high-flying, high-profile speakers, you know, events, give them what they want and network out across the community, across the regions. Obviously now with Zoom, we can network up and down the country, you know, which I certainly do. I'll go to events, doesn't matter who's organizing it, if it's something that's of interest to me personally, you know, and then therefore I'm networking out now on behalf of the Board of Deputies, of course, by being seen at places as well, even though to a certain degree I'm going in the personal capacity. So there's lots of things to take forward from today's very interesting session.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, let me go to Michelle.
Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate what Sarah said, because Sarah and I did actually work closely together on successful bids, etc. But what Susie, well done, it was brilliant. Okay, as someone who's been involved in bid writing in school education and in the community, etc., you know, I think the secret is, and this is what I wanted to ask this morning, was that you have paid officials in the community that spearhead it. So Susie, if you don't mind me asking you, who actually employed you? Were you employed by the Rep Council, or what was your initial role? And is there any idea of figures involved in, you know, what payment is, what salaries are? So you, if I, you know, were you part-time, full-time, and also you also employed someone to do the bid writing as well, help you? Okay, but well done, Susie.
So my role is actually paid for by shul membership fee. So anyone who's a member of a shul, they contribute £3 a year. I think it works out to be like, it's something really tiny. And then I also was getting a portion from UJA as well. So we've got 4 large synagogues and UJA, but my contract was managed by the Rep Council. It always has been. And my original role was really just to put in some programs, just to do choirs and photography groups. And this is when I created the Facebook group, our first website, the communal diary. It was kind of very operations. It wasn't strategic. It's only really since the JDC have come along that my role has kind of expanded into a bit more of a strategic community development perspective. But I think it was the first time that our shuls had ever come together for anything. I don't think they'd ever worked together on anything. So and that was before I was appointed. So that was the first kind of experience, and that was including a Reform synagogue as well as the 3 Orthodox. So they just felt it was called Liatid. Liatid is part of the JDC arm. It's a leadership arm. It was a UJA course that some of them were on that said we need to have a community professional. I think Johnny actually was part of that process. I don't know if that's right, but there were a lot of people part of this process of what do we need in the community, and they created a strategic review and a role. And it's kind of gone on from there, really. My role has just expanded over the years. But to not have somebody paid to do this is very difficult, because I'm on it all day, every day. My lay leaders can't be. They have full-time jobs. Some are retired, but being able to actually deliver a professional service. I think nowadays people don't have the kind of time that they used to have. So to get somebody dedicated to this kind of work, it's much harder on a voluntary basis. And to take it seriously and invest in it is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think that
Can
what
I-
Susie said is very true. I'll just say this, and I'll come back to you, Michelle, and then Johnny. Is that actually making sure you've got the capacity in your community to do things is one of the key elements, and that's something that I've come to recognise through the experience of building JSCN, and that's what I'm involved in at the moment. So part of my capacity building is that we've got funds to bring in Zoe, and in a smaller way, but a similar fashion to Leeds Community bringing Susie in, and so you can apply for funding to enhance that capacity. So Michelle, if I let you come back on that, and then I'll go to Johnny.
So I'm conscious of the fact that in Liverpool, we were very fortunate to get a lot of UJI funding, which funded Sarah Radovan for many years. We also had a resource centre person, and it was all under the auspices of the Rep Council. But unfortunately, the UJI funding has gone now. And now because of COVID, lottery funding, as you said, has gone as well. So what is the way forward? I mean, we're now at the cusp of revamping ourselves with the funding for full-time or part-time non-lay leaders, and it's the way forward now.
Well, I think let me go to Johnny. I don't know if you can address that point, or
Yes,
bring up your first point.
Lottery funding hasn't gone. It's at the moment directed COVID, and it's strange.
Yeah.
It's strange, but COVID actually is an opportunity for the Jewish community. Because we are a particularly affected group, you can make your bids both to the lottery, but also to several other funders without any worries at all, and just represent what's happened in the community. That we have had at least twice as many deaths pro rata as other communities. That's immediately a cause for concern. So funders who will fund befriending, in terms of mental health response, or indeed reduction of isolation or other things, will be responsive. And there are a number out there. So whether it's in the Jewish community, and there are still funders in the Jewish community you can approach, and several of those based in London will still give money outside, so don't be afraid to make the ask. Or it's, the mainstream funders, like the lottery, but also there's other ones like Foyle Foundation do a small grants round. Yeah, you can apply to them if you've got the right sort of project. There's lots. And but my point was, don't be afraid, because you can start this voluntary. The lottery stuff and several other funding bids are quite simple. You're all intelligent people. You can all do them. And if you've just done a simple consultation with your community, you can show that you've got an evidence base, and move forward. Yes, it's then nice within that, particularly if you're getting £10,000 from the lottery, to build in some part-time worker support to then grow the next step. But don't be afraid. I'll give you, it's not a Jewish example, a church in the middle of Stoke, a place called Feg Hayes. A guy who was retired, who just had a determination to knock down and rebuild their hall as a community hub and do up their church. £750,000 later, he'd done a pretty reasonable job within 3 years. Yeah, so yes, I worked with him, but people can do it on a voluntary basis. And obviously within that, then at the end of that process, we're getting a professional. So do that, look for the small funders, use the searches, go to your local council for voluntary services. They're there to help you, and they will be able to offer you fundraising support as well. And then, like you say, come back to Ed. Myself and Susie, I know, will be more than happy to help as well. So I hope people can see it's not as tough as it might at first appear. It is possible. And I work with some very small groups who are very successful in getting decent amounts of funding.
Thanks, Johnny. I think that sort of is the nub of it, is that there's a lot of information on the JSCN website which supports what Johnny just said. Have a look at that. To ask somebody to give you a bit of professional help just to get over one little bit rather than do the whole thing is a lot cheaper if you need that, and that sort of thing can possibly be available. But Debbie, let me come to you in Aberdeen.
So I would be interested, Johnny says he works with small groups. Everything that we've heard is really interesting rather. But when we're talking about small groups and looking at a community like Leeds, to me, that is a very large community. We are 20, well, we might not even be 20 members this year. We were 23 last year. We've lost a few people, you know, they've left Aberdeen because of COVID, because they've lost their jobs. So when it comes to funding applications, you know, we can say this is the need. We can identify need, you know, we can do the assessment, the planning, the implementation, the evaluation, but we don't have the capacity, we don't have the bodies. So it's very difficult when you're applying for funding and for projects because we don't have the people, we don't have the volunteers. We did have a very positive discussion with the National Lottery. It was actually around the building. But at the end of the day, we were too small for the National Lottery. And it's who is interested in us and in investing in us. And that's a bit of that's our difficulty, is finding funders because we're so small. Now, we always argue it's important to have a Jewish presence in this part of the world because there is no synagogue north of Edinburgh. We're the next Jewish community. And funding that we would be looking for is to ensure that there is a Jewish presence, that there is some sort of educational use of our building going forward.
Right. Debbie, I think you've hit some key points and Johnny is dying to answer them.
Okay, you've hit the absolute key point, because that's a Heritage Lottery Funds bid you're talking about, as well as a lottery bid, because you're not just talking about the families within the community, you're talking about engaging the wider community.
Yeah.
So Heritage Lottery, I worked with Leicester to help them get a little bit of top-up funding. They'd already done a huge amount of work anyway on their heritage project. Similar to what you're describing, is that their client group were people coming into the synagogue, getting educational tours, and they did up their synagogue so they could do that better. And
yeah, see, they wouldn't give us money. The difficulty was, we spoke to them. We're in it's a Georgian listed building. We rent out and we get a tiny income from our rental. And because we rent out, Heritage Lottery won't give us the money.
Yeah, that's one, and I have that one with groups. You need to own what you do. So again, it's a step process. When awards for all comes back online, because you can't do it with the COVID grant. So when you can get that 10,000, the first step is get somebody in to help with that development. You can look at near neighbours as well. Near neighbours, if you're doing what you described, that's 3,000. I'm not sure if it's up in Aberdeen though. But
no, a lot of the money is for England. It's not for Scotland.
I was about to say, find the Scottish equivalent. So Church Urban Fund, where that money comes through, talk to them.
They won't give us the money. This is another issue, is I've tried lots of these places. Because we're Jewish, we're not Christian, a synagogue is not a church. I've had this argument. They do not see a synagogue as a church. It is so frustrating.
I promise you that there are funders out there. There's funders out there for everything. It's identifying the right ones, making the business case, because what you're talking about is a business case.
Yeah.
And moving forward. I mean, actually, because I presume you charge for people coming into the synagogue and having visits, do you?
Everything is done by donation. Schools always say they don't have money. We do a lot with the schools, and we don't tend to get money from the schools, but we do doors open days, so we get money from that. I mean,
okay, so I mean, my point is that there's, and also because of that rent thing, you've actually got social investment money that you could apply for. You know, the social investment grants. There are different bits of funding that you can get, but it would require a one-to-one to be able to identify more of that and to build up the better plan.
Yeah, I have spoken to our local voluntary organisation. We're going through the process now of doing an options appraisal. I need to get the funding for the options appraisal. I've found 2 companies that I've put to tender. Basically, I'm waiting for one tender to come back.
Okay, so, and again, there are ways and means of going back to Heritage Lottery as well once you've done that, and removing out that rental bit. It just needs a little bit of work on it to tweak. But like I say, without doing that more in-depth analysis with you, it's on this sort of a call, it's just going to take too much time. So hope that's been a tiny bit of help.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think sort of we're well over, getting towards an hour and a half almost. And thank you to everybody for coming in this morning. Please go on the website. If you've got questions, I can field them. I can pass you through to Johnny or to Susie, or indeed to Fiona, if that's appropriate, to find out about the way Fiona was organising things, the way she spoke about there. Don't worry, we are going to be doing more on this. And in the new year, we will get some sessions organised on not just on funding, but on lay leadership and building capacity within your organisations and within your community, so you can do the best that you can for your members and the wider community around you. So thank you for coming this morning. Thank you to Susie. Thank you to Johnny. Thank you to Fiona. Thank you all for coming. You can review this. We'll put it up, like I say, but this is an introduction. So take that introduction forward, go to the JSCN website, look at the toolkit, and if you've got any questions, come back to us. But we'll see you, yes, we'll see you next week. We have the leader of the Athens community joining us, so that's another special event next week. Bye for now.
Bye, Ed. Well done.
Thanks, Ed.